Everybody, what's up? Welcome to another episode of ArmTalk. I'm your host, Jody Williams. Now, before I go any further, one may want to ask, hey, Jody, how'd you start this podcast? Well, the two gentlemen that are my guests today inspired me to do ArmTalk. Yes, it's the two guys you all know who had the show that we used to watch. Was it every Thursday night? Is that what it was?
Whenever we felt like it, really.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's been so long.
I think Thursday was like one of the prime nights, though.
John Brown, Josh Grant, welcome to the show.
What's up? Thanks, Jody.
It's great
I missed those. Man, you know what? Those shows I would have on while I was working out. And it was like,
you know what's crazy, man? I was thinking about it earlier because I'm like, man, I haven't been on a podcast in a while. We started that show 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, how could it even be close to 10 years? I don't know.
I think it was during the height of the Game of Arms thing, right before Wall really picked up.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Right. Yeah, 2016 is when we started it.
All I know is there weren't any other ones. We were the only idiots doing it. Now there's all kinds of idiots everywhere doing it.
I'm one of them.
Look what we did.
No, it was good though because you guys were the first, and so it was kind of like, oh, I can't wait. Who's the next guest? Sweet. You guys were posted the week of. I'm thinking, all right, cool. I gotta bust my butt, get home, be in my garage, get my workout on, listen to you guys, listen to your guests, and it was like, yeah, I like this is kind of cool because all it was just talking shop, and of course, whatever tournaments that guest had going on or whatever. So yeah, hey, I loved it. I loved it. So thank you once again for paving the way for guys like myself and a lot of other people now who have those podcast shows.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's funny thinking back in those days too. It was actually very difficult to get some people on the show.
Yeah.
Like we had to convince, there was quite a few people that we had to reach out multiple times, and like when they were about to come on, they were still like nervous and they didn't know how it was going to be. And like, how do you even, what is the podcast? Like people were kind of just confused about the whole thing. And then
that was before Brzezinski came back. We tried to get Brzezinski on the show a bunch of times, and we even had Bob Brown like calling him while he was on the show, trying to trick him into it because he was out of the sport at that point.
Right.
But yeah, I was like calling people weeks in advance to try to get them like to do a show a month or two down the road because there wasn't anything like that. And plus, John had to do all kinds of ridiculous stuff to get it to work the way that it did. Like now you can just do it on this app, but you had like 10 different programs running at once, and it was
it was like literally a supercomputer to be able to do it all, and then like broadcast to YouTube and Facebook at the same time and record it. It was just crazy. And yeah, StreamYard is nice. You just click a button and it works. Half the time Skype didn't work for people. We had a guest account that had like a password we had to change. It was horrible.
Oh wow. I mean that's like old school stuff. I mean there were times where John's from the Northeast and so is Josh, and then John moved to Minnesota, now he's moved back, and all that was going on and stuff. You had a different training group because Josh would train with Jerry Carteret in that group, and John had the dungeon with President Kalimba in that group, and you guys were the shows were awesome, and I loved it so much. I was like, it was different because when I started doing my show, it was in my garage at my old house, and then it was like, okay, well now I got this pad of paper, and I have jotted down like maybe 6 questions, and my shows were like 25-30 minutes, and that was on YouTube Live, and then I had to up my game and try to keep up with everybody. So all right, now let's do it on YouTube, and then now it's like, okay, instead of going on my phone or whatever, let's go ahead and do StreamYard. So I mean, over the years I kind of just got better and better with it. So
yeah.
Yep.
So tell me something, gentlemen. Arm wrestling now, the way it is now, do you think we're going in a good direction? What do you think?
Yeah, we are going in a good direction, but not in the United States. I think East versus West, what they're doing is great, and they have it figured out. They've moved almost all the bullshit out of it. The United States, we're even worse than we were. We're a total shit show. I mean, what happened yesterday is not even, it's like page 100 in a book. It's just like we constantly are fucking ourselves over, shooting ourselves in the foot for no reason. Just because of all these petty little squabbles between people, and I want to do nationals. No, nobody's like putting the sport first. And I mean that when I say nobody. And it's embarrassing. And I've said it to every person who will listen to me who runs the nationals. And some of them listen, some of them don't, some of them ignore me, and that's fine. But it is embarrassment. The fact that in a country of our size, 315 million people, we get 200 whatever entries at the IFA nationals where they don't test. And then you get 160 entries at USAF nationals where you do test. And Canada gets 800, 900 people at their nationals.
Wow.
Turkey gets 800 fucking people at their nationals. You know, it's ridiculous. They get the biggest event of the year in other countries is nationals. Here, it's like, which nationals? You have to like specify USAF, IFA,
Right.
John Hancock's, whatever, all the different ones that are going on. Everybody's got their own little nationals. Jerry Caderet used to make a joke all the time. If you go into a diner to have breakfast and ask all the national champions to raise their hand, 10 people are going to raise their hand. And that's the reality.
Yeah.
That our sport has, in the United States in particular, we're like doing, people say they hate participation trophies, but that's the reality. You can win a national title if you just go to the right event, because there's probably going to be one person in your class. And that's not how it should be in a country of our size. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because when I saw the two giant tournaments that Canada had was the Ottawa Open and then, the Canadian Nationals. And, I was talking with my co-host, Ryan Espy. He goes, yeah, Quebec did it good. They put everything into that, and it was all about, the arm wrestling itself. And I was like, my word. I mean, can you imagine 800 to 900, people there for a national? Like, if you win that, that's saying something, because you can give out the classes,
I've said that in the past. I said I would rather go to nationals and get 8th place and know I could legitimately say I'm 8th in the country versus going to nationals and winning it and being able to hang up the gold medal, which I have downstairs in my train. I got fucking 16 gold medals from nationals. Mm-hmm. Am I going to sit here and tell you I was the best 198 pounds 16 times? No fucking way. Right? So I should be able to say I won this, and that means nobody at 198 can beat me, at least not easily, or at least not naturally. And I would like to have that situation, because in other sports, when you say, I'm ranked 5th or 6th, it means something. When you say that in the United States, it means I'm 5th on this list, but there's 12 other lists. So really, what am I, 30th?
Right. And while we're on that topic, and I want to get you guys' thoughts, and you guys in the chat also, and we'll go with John first. So the question is, someone asked me a while back, well, how come we don't send our heavy hitters, to Worlds? I said, well, think about it. Travis, been there and done that. Ron Bath, been there and done that. Dave Chapey, been there and done that. Brezink, left hand, been there and done that.
Caderet.
Yeah, been there and done that. So you think about it, like, our heavy hitters have already done that. And I also thought that, when WAL came around and they're going, wait, I can make how much money? I can stay in the States? Oh, sign me up. And everybody kind of stayed there. I mean, do you think that had anything to do with why we don't send our heavy hitters to Worlds? What do you think, John?
Well, it's not necessarily that we don't send our heavy hitters, it's that they don't want to go. And a lot of the reason why they don't want to go is because it costs quite a bit of money for them to do that.
Right. And
it's pretty inconvenient, the amount of money it costs to go, if you're not really chasing that kind of world title.
Right.
And also, I don't think anybody wants to risk failing a drug test.
That's fair.
And I mean, listen, like, we all know what I'm saying. It's about PEDs, but there's plenty of things you can fail a drug test for that aren't PEDs. And like, you're responsible for understanding and knowing that. And that's another burden. And if I can go to a tournament and no one's checking anything, and they're going to give me a check at the end of it, I mean, that's pretty hard to argue. And also, if they're handing me that check at the end of it and they don't care what I'm on or what I'm doing, and they call me a world champ at the end of it, like, what's the difference? The internet thinks I'm a world champ. So what if I didn't attend, the World Arm Wrestling Federation tournament?
That's so true.
Yeah, we have a lot of those just add water champions. I'm like, that needs to quit.
Well, what's I can tell you, for like being at WAF, and I weighed in, and they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We need to take you for drug testing." And I said, "Okay, give me a case of water, and you can take me wherever you want, because I was like dehydrated, like 7 pounds underweight from water.
Right.
So I get in this little room, and I'm sitting there drinking my case of water that they were nice enough to give me, and there was other athletes in there with me, and you could tell some of them were perfectly happy being in there, and you could tell that some were not. So
they're nervous.
Yeah, well, nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody wants to be that guy who's like, uh-oh.
They're sweating, and all of a sudden you're like, they're sweating. They're kind of looking around, Yeah.
Are you still cutting weight, dude, or what? But no, like for me, it was like I had a clear conscience. It's just like, just let me hydrate, and I'll be on my way. But nobody wants to be that guy, and nobody wants to see a post come out from anywhere that has your name on it that says you failed a drug test, even if everybody knows you can't pass one. It doesn't matter. Nobody wants that publicity.
No, Josh, what's your take on that?
I agree with everything John said, and I'll add something to it. If you look at the people that have gone, in my mind, that's like a list of badasses from the United States. Jeff Hale's gone the last 3 years, and he's winning matches, but he's also getting scraped by these, Kazakhstani guys, and it's not because he's not amazing. It's because he's decided, I don't want to walk around in one country and act like I'm the peacock if I haven't gone to the place where every serious arm wrestler knows that all of the best international talent competes, and that's WAF. If you have not won at WAF, and I don't give a fuck what anybody says, Jody, no matter if they're my friend or not, you are not a world title holder. You're not. Right. And we asked Dave Chafee on our show what title means the most to you after he had won WAL. And he said WAF. WAF was the title that meant the most to him. Because
that 2010 one.
Tournament format, 28 killers from all over the world, all of the best countries, Ukraine, Turkey, Kazakhstan, Georgia, Russia, etc. You got to go through all of them to win. You got to be able to beat everybody. And the people that have done it from here, to me, that is like a badge of honor that can't be replicated. And if you think that, when I see people on Reddit saying I'm IFA world champion, it makes me feel like laughing. It's like, just drop that shit. There's only one place to get the world title, and that's WAF. And regardless of how much of a bunch of assholes run WAF and all that, that's 100% true. But if you want to say legitimately you want a world title in the senior class, that's the only place to do it. And again, people talk about FIFA and how corrupt it is and everybody hates it. Nobody started a second World Cup.
True.
Right? The World Cup is the World Cup. And yes, they're corrupt. Yes, they're assholes. You can say exactly the same thing about WAF. It's earned, it's deserved. But that's where you want to go if you want to have the respect of the international athletes who are the best in the world. If you want to have the respect of your grandma, you can hold your own world title championship over at Dave and Buster's in Massachusetts. And everybody in your Facebook feed who's not an arm wrestler is going to be like, oh, my God, I know a world champion. It's so fucking amazing. You can get beautiful medals made up. You're good to go.
Yeah.
To me, that's a big part of the joke. And it's related to the national stuff we talked about earlier. We just have, instead of trying to solve problems, we just press the duplicate button. Well, I'm going to do my own shit. It's the same thing in martial arts. When people brought karate over here, jiu-jitsu or whatever, it was one style. 10, 15 years go by, like, well, I can do it better than my sensei. I'm starting my own style. And now there's hundreds of styles of karate here and taekwondo, and everybody's doing it because they can do it better. So you just water it down every time. Every time you do it, you water it down. And that's what we're doing in the United States.
Yeah, and what's really crazy is that Dave Chafee won that world title at 242. That big bastard somehow got down to 242.
That is also crazy.
But to Josh's point, with as soon as you walk in the room at WAF, you understand it's different.
Just the vibe, the kind of goes atmosphere, and you're like going.
When you see 40 Team Georgia shirts, and you see 40 Ukraine shirts, and you just see coaches with athletes in the way that they run everything, they don't one time call a match to the table. Everything's done off of a screen, and everybody watches the screen, and nobody misses their matches.
Ever.
They have, things like protests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the call. You get to put down money and say, I know I did not foul. And they review it. And half the time they say, you're right. We'll do it again.
You keep your money.
Yes.
If you win, if you win the protest, you keep your money.
Right.
They had to start charging people because people were protesting just to give their athlete a few extra minutes to rest.
What? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it was a real thing. So they started charging people for it, so you wouldn't just protest to get a delay, you know?
Yeah, it has to mean something, right? Like
we walk in the room there. I know you've been to IFA, so just imagine 1,500 actual arm wrestlers in the room. I mean, it's crazy. We don't get that anywhere. Not entries, actual arm wrestlers, right? It's nuts. 8 tables running all goddamn day for 6 days in a row. Yeah. It's immense.
Yeah, there's just something about it. You feel it. You just feel it, and you're like, this is something different that we don't have over here for sure.
And I wish we could. Honestly, I thought, because of course, the question for decades and decades and decades was like, hey, how come we're not in the Olympics? And I always thought WAF Worlds was the Olympics because
closer you can get.
Yeah, the closer you can get. But anytime we talk about these world titles and stuff, I have to admit, because WAF was going on since what, 1979? Is that what it was?
Long time.
When WWC, the Petaluma Championships, does that hold any water in your opinion? Because that was going on just like WAP was going on.
Yeah, I think it's like that was the early stages, and that you can go back and say, could a boxer from whatever decade or generation beat one from today? It's like at that time that was the hardest tournament you could win. So that was the apogee of our sport back then. Mm-hmm. So you can't really say, it doesn't count. I mean, they didn't have the same level of competition for sure, but that doesn't mean they weren't the best that was walking around at that time, right? They were. And now the times have changed. We've got, this amazing event going on, and, we have someone just mentioned in the chat. I'm trying to look at it. I used to do this with John all the time because he wasn't able to multitask like me. So I had to always take care of it. I did all the hard stuff on the podcast. He just pressed go and just sat there basically.
And I just brought my genius and brilliance to the conversation. But anyway, go ahead.
But like someone said, Michigan State's numbers don't rival national events. They beat them. New England's gets more people than any nationals. There's 5 or 6 events. Winter Blast is another one.
Yep.
New York State's usually there's 5 or 6 events across the country that will double or triple the numbers you get at nationals. And again, that's an embarrassment. New England should be big. Michigan State should be big, etc., but they shouldn't be bigger than nationals. And someone also said you got to get rid of Simon from USAF. And people love to say that. And Simon can piss people off with the best of them. But the entire group of people, I'm not going to list them all, but everybody knows they are all choosing individual aspects of either their leagues or their personal benefits, financial, historical, whatever it is, and putting it in front of the sport. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to anybody who's running nationals. It just says that's the reality. Once you decide your personal beliefs or desires are more important than the sport on the national level, then you can't say you're putting the sport first, regardless of who did what or who's mad at who or who stole money from who or who said something mean to somebody. And I've said to people a bunch of times, this is not like Israel and Palestine. This is arm wrestling.
Right.
We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're not talking about, some kind of licensing rights that are going to make somebody a millionaire. We're talking about what is still a niche sport in our country. There's probably more people playing fucking tiddlywinks than there are arm wrestling. So why are we getting into these ridiculous scrapes about it? It makes no sense. We should be able to unify around a singular nationals that qualifies people for IFA or WAF, or if somebody else wants to make a new world champion that they have in their backyard and qualify them for that too. And then we can at least start by having a sizable real nationals that's tested, and all the athletes that are not afraid of drug tests will show up, and we'll be able to say we're the best national athlete in our sport. And we got there right before the pandemic.
Yep.
After 5 fucking years of arguing about it, everybody agreed to hold a single nationals, right? And unfortunately, that was one of the ones that was not drug tested because it got put together. I don't even know what the reason was, but we ended up not drug testing that. So we had a lot of interesting characters that you don't normally see at nationals there, but it was huge.
You talking about the 2017?
I think it was 2018.
Okay.
But it might have been 2017. I don't remember at this point. It might even have been 2019, right before the pandemic. Anyway, whatever year it was, and it was huge. It was awesome. There were a lot of big names there. The classes were full. It was really hard to win. I was like, and that was the first year. And then the pandemic hit, and everybody used it as an excuse. And then the IFA-WAFA split happened, and that was another excuse. And now it's just like someone just keeps pressing the copy button. And we had 6 one year.
Yeah, that was embarrassing because, like you said, watered everything down. It's like, man, it was like I don't want to become a diet champion. That's what it kind of felt like at one point, and I always want to sit there and say, I want that national title. I want that world title, but I don't want that asterisk, next to my name. Like, I'm sitting up here with a second place IFA world medal, right? Second place. I'm proud of it, but I also knew what it was. I knew that, right after the pandemic, and hey, guess what? It was more of a national because it was like 85% Americans, and you had a few Canadians, and then you sprinkle in Kazakhstanian and Japan,
Let's
Mexico.
Be honest, it was like 95% Americans and 5% people from other countries that already lived in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Because the borders were closed, so nobody could get here.
Right. I mean, at that point, though, and nobody can really leave their country, Right. But my thing is just like, yes, I would like to see, do I get jealous when I saw the numbers of Canada? Yeah. So I'm like, damn, that could be us, I will say this, though. Why I'm super duper excited to go to Winter Blast is because when I saw it, I want to go for the last 3 years, and I couldn't make it. I always had something planned, or there's always something going on. And I had talked to Ryan Grondin, and I said, look here, man. This was January of last year. I said, look here, I can't go this year, but I'm going to try to make it a point to go next year in 2025. Here I am. So I'm talking to Sue Fisher. I'm talking to Ryan Grondin. I'm excited to go because I'm thinking, man, if y'all got over 500 entries, that's not even a national. It's just Winter Blast, Like that had more than IFA nationals and unifies combined. That just tells you the kind of arm wrestling over there. And another reason, aside from the arm gods match that I got, why I want to go over there, because I want to compete against guys I've never pulled before. I want to, come out of my backyard in the Pacific Northwest, and I want to roll over there and go, okay, what's this all about, Yeah. Like, I hear these names, but I want to actually put my elbow on the table. I want to see, what do I got against them?
Absolutely.
And vice versa, Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. That's why I went to Ottawa the last 2 years, because I saw they were getting 700 entries. And I was like, holy shit, I want to go up there and do that. And it was brutal. I mean, it was tough to win matches there. And I was like, this is awesome. I told my entire team after going the first year, you guys got to go up. And we ended up bringing like 7 or 8 people from Arsenal of Arms up there this year. And everybody had a total blast because it's as close as we can get in the United States to that kind of world's feeling, even though it's still in a bar and all that kind of stuff that, we have not been able to escape that really in the United States. It's a lot of people. It happens over 2 days. The most impressive part about the Ottawa Open is how many young people they have. They had 186 kids the first year that I went, and this year they had something like 300. So it was just nuts. Wow. You see kids' classes with like 30 kids in them. And, go ahead.
When you see that, what do you say to yourself? Do you go, damn, what are we doing wrong?
I asked that question. I said, well, how did you guys do this? And what happened is one of the arm wrestlers up there is a physical education teacher in a high school. So he started an arm wrestling program. And then because he does all the other sports with all the other schools in the area, he started talking the coaches and physical education teachers one by one into having arm wrestling teams in their schools so they could compete. And they ended up getting 17 high schools that'll have arm wrestling teams. And so that obviously created an interest because you can get credit for it in school. You can put it on your college application, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of expanded. And that entire group of high schools all in the Ottawa area all come to the Ottawa Open. So that's how they did it.
Nice. I mean, to get those numbers, Canadian Nationals, I'm like going, when you get that many people, then it leads to me to believe, okay, well, classes, how many are we talking in each class? Like 16, 17 people in each class?
190 in the 209 class, which is heavy for me, but that's what it is up there. There were 38 people left and right hand, I believe, this year. And in the Grandmasters class, which is the only Masters class he runs, there's like 14 people in my class. And that's huge. You know what I mean? That's way more than I've ever seen anywhere other than overseas.
So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like when you go to those events, I'm thinking, all right, if I go top 10 there, it's like 28 guys. I know I'm doing something right. I mean, I can sit there and go, hey, I can bang with some of y'all guys. So that felt good, you know. John, you went to WAF Worlds this past year. You tell me your experience. What was it like for you?
Oh, it was awesome. Like I said, like you walk in that room, you know this is not your local tournament. You know what I mean? It's not even our national tournament. It feels way different.
Right.
I thought everything was perfect in terms of like how it was run. They gave you like an estimated time that your class would start, which was really, really nice because like there's so much going on and it's such a big area and everything that it's nice that if you're not there 2 hours early or something like, you know what I mean? Like just sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
So it was an estimate, of course, but like they had an estimated time of your class starting and they were pretty close every day to that. They would tell you what table your class was going to start on. And for the most part that held true. What was nice about the protest system is that the referees weren't second guessing themselves ever. They called what they saw, you know, that's it, which is something that's very difficult. Anybody who's ever refereed, it can be difficult sometimes. Like you make a call and you're like, I'm pretty sure I saw that, but I hope I'm right. Now everybody has a camera. So half the time you're proven wrong. And then you're like, well, I'm sorry. I'm just a human being. I ref 2,000 matches today. I made one bad call. The refs over there don't care. They're like, this is what I saw, so this is what I'm calling. You have an avenue to argue that. So it makes the referees better because they're not second guessing anything that they see because there's an avenue for you to correct it. Everything was so good. Like I fouled there and I never thought I didn't foul. There was false starts called. There was no doubt in my mind that it was a good call. Like there was no bias. There was no everything was super uniform.
Right.
Like I had different referees all day, and every referee did the same things the exact same way every time, which is, you know, everybody in the U.S. has like a style of refereeing. Like you have a match with a certain referee, they do it a little bit differently than your other referee.
So
not even to say that one's wrong or one's right. They're just a little different. Over there, everybody did.
Even amongst the master level referees that we have here, they do not. Even if they're perfect at WAF, when they come back here, they all have their own style. John's so right about that.
Yeah, and it was because you're not working with your dance partner who's your down ref. You know what I mean? Because it's like everything that they do with each other is very. They all feed off of each other because that's how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
And like it was just everything was like the only thing you had to worry about was competing.
Right.
Which was really, really nice. And you don't
just make it easy.
Yeah, you don't understand how much of the other stuff you think about until you don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
But no, I thought it was excellent. Everything was perfectly run.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's really important to mention is like they have the Paralympic athletes get an entire day for each arm dedicated to them. And you go in there and there's hundreds of para athletes of all different kinds of disabilities, which you don't see anywhere else except for that one event. That's the only time you get to see that. Obviously, masters have their own same thing. And then you have juniors with their own days and then seniors with their own days. So it's very intelligently delineated. So you get these large groups of people into a room with a specific timetable, and that's how they go through that number of matches and that incredible number of athletes in such an efficient manner. And the best thing that John mentioned, I've mentioned it before, it's like when you first walk into the room and you're like, holy shit, there's 8 tables up there. There's like 100 refs, this massive room, giant screens, and there's just all these people in Kazakhstan shirts and Georgian shirts and Turkey. And it's like, wow, this is for real, you know?
Yeah,
and then if you're lucky enough to get a win on somebody from one of those countries, you know there were 800 people at Turkish Nationals. So if you beat somebody there, you beat the best Turkey had, and that fucking means something. You're not getting that anywhere else.
That is a special feeling. That is a special feeling that you're like, okay, I'm competing in a class with top 2 from everywhere.
Right.
Like that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? It's not like
open invite. You can't just go if you want to go. You have to qualify. You have to win nationals or get your runner-up. That's the only way to get there. There's no other tournament like that. They restrict the number of entries, Jody. Think about that. Like at IFA, you can have 10 people from a country in any class. At WAF, it's 2 people maximum. So you have these countries with like 800. They would send their entire team if they could, but they're restricted to 2 per class. So just imagine how big it would be if they had IFA's rules. There would be 5,000 pullers there.
I'm hoping one of these years they would like say, okay, let's cut the cord. Now we didn't build this foundation and go, hey, every top 2 in every class,
That's not what I'm hoping. What I'm hoping is that IFA goes away because there's been a reunification. I don't want IFA to continue to grow and get big, and I know that pisses people off. What I want is for WAF to stop being assholes, unban everybody, all the refs, all the athletes, bring Leonard back if he wants to come back, and re-fucking unify under a single banner so we don't look like idiots. That's what needs to happen. The USA keeps IFA afloat. The USA is the vast majority of IFA. And that's the reality, right? And their biggest country that they were, it was a huge score to get Sweden to leave WAF to join them. They lost Sweden because of the worlds that you went to, because the borders were closed and Swedish athletes couldn't come to compete and worlds was held anyway. And that kind of stuff is not professional. And I understand all the explanations for it and everything else. And at the end of the day, it's not about our personalities. It's not about who's going to be pissed off. It's not about who I like better, because without a question, I would pick the people running IFA over the people who run WAF. No doubt. But that's not an option.
Here's the funny part. I got 2 more points to make on this WAF before we change gears on the Worlds. And Luke Polster made an interesting comment. I was talking to him, and he said on the podcast too, he goes, competition-wise, IFA has better nationals, but WAF has better Worlds.
I don't even agree with that. I think the only reason you get more people at IFA nationals is because they don't test. I think if you didn't test at USAF, you get a similar number. And I don't think either of them are good competition because it's watered down. IFA might get more people, but if you don't test, you're always going to get more people. So if you decide to run a nationals and you're going to drug test, you are choosing professionalism over numbers. And you have to have the guts to do that. And you can go back and forth about arguing which one's better, and that's not for me to decide, but that's what's going to control your numbers. Like, for example, as I just mentioned, the year the USAF didn't test, the numbers, I don't know, tripled or even more than that. It was huge. So that's easy to do. You just have to say, fuck it, we're not going to test anymore, which a lot of people would say that's the argument to make and build it up for X number of years until you get the numbers up large again and then start testing. But what would happen the moment you start testing, those numbers are going to disappear. That's the reality of our sport, and for good or for ill. Someone just posted in the comments to stop hating on IFA. I'm not going to stop hating on IFA, and the reason is all the ones I just said. It has nothing to do with the people who run it or me not admitting that WAF has a level of corruption in them that is not fair, that Austin has too much control over who gets banned, and he takes things personally and bans certain people and not others. All that is 100% bullshit, and it should go away. But just like if you look at our country, every time a president gets elected that half the country doesn't like, we don't all fucking move away. We man up and deal with it, And that's what needed to be done with WAF. Don't leave. Figure out how we're going to fix it. Figure out how to get the person you want into office. And just to give up and to abandon it en masse, like what happened to me, was a mistake.
Man, can you imagine if I had $1 every time someone said the word ban in the last couple of days?
I know, man.
Your take, John, on that.
No, I mean, I agree. I just think it should be unified, right? I feel terrible for both sides athletes because now there's 2 worlds. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel good for either one, right? So anytime there's unification, especially when there's a world title, like that kind of, the term world title sort of implies one, because there's it's one world, right? National title is different. Like, obviously national for the country, for a country, it should be one too. But if we're talking the worlds, like, there should be one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same problem with, places like King of the Table or places like East versus West saying they have a world title. Like, can you argue that those people are the absolute best in the world? Hell yeah, you can. Of course you can. Like, to say that Devin isn't the best 105 kilo right arm on the world when he makes weight, yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty hard to argue that he's not. You know, he shows up and he continually wins. So he probably is the best in the world. But there is something very special about going through 40 athletes. There's something very special about that in like a world tournament where it's like you're not just one guy chipping away at another guy. There's something really cool about that too. But there's something really cool about going through an entire day and looking around and seeing a bunch of dead bodies around you. Saying, I went through everybody. All of your country sends your best.
Right.
Like at 90 kilos, used to be Prudnik, used to be Zoloev, used to be Angarbayev, you know, just the names, and Sasha was there. It's like you have to go through 5 people who are like absolute world class that everybody knows just in a single class at WAF. Right. I always feel like, you know, Engen, I don't remember exactly how he described it, but he's like, to be considered seriously, you have to win WAF. And then after WAF, people start using, that's obviously people use whatever they can, think they can get away with at WAF. But then after WAF, after they've won the title like Levon did, that's when they start jumping on every drug known to man, and they put on 150 pounds and they become like completely untouchable.
They become like a mutant.
A delineation. If WAF is like the NCAA and East versus West is whatever, NBA, that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, you know, it's like, you know, what's like crazy about 2025 arm wrestling, like in terms of like social media, YouTube, that kind of thing now, is that there are people out there that actually say things like, yeah, that guy's pretty good, but he's only a WAF champ. You know what I mean? Like he competes at East versus West, and he's like up and coming, but he's only a WAF champ. He's not really tested.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what?
Well, over here, it's easy. If you've never been to WAF or you've never watched, you don't understand. It's just another set of initials.
Yeah, and all you got to do to understand is ask Engen, ask Neil Pickup.
Oh yeah,
2 guys who are deeply entrenched in the new super match format entertainment side of arm wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Super entrenched, super invested in this, and they'll both tell you like there's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to know.
Better yet, I'll go a step further, and you know, I was going to ask one last question, but John, you kind of touched base, and then the Drew kind of said something here. You know, are you a world champion or the world champion?
Exactly.
And what I was going to ask is that it's kind of like what Josh said too. You know, and John would have said, "Hey, Devin, you know, Lorette, like, okay, are you a world champion or the world champion?" Well, I mean, I kind of like, you know, Levon is the world champion currently right now, but you know, is he the current WAF world champion? Well, no, but he's, you know, this organization's world champion, and I think sometimes people tend to kind of do this.
Well, there is one very clear delineator between the two, right? WAF is a tournament, and East versus West is a super match format.
Sure.
So, you know, in terms of tournaments, the one world championship is WAF. And in terms of super match format, in my opinion, the one world championship is East versus West. So those are the two. And there's whatever KO, King of the Table and East versus West seem to acknowledge each other as, you know, if you win, that it's kind of the same type of thing. So it's, and it looks like, I think they're even being unified now. I'm not sure exactly what's happening. But so that's, for me, that's how I look at it. Tournament, WAF, super matches, East versus West.
Gotcha. Yeah, and let's be like really clear. The best part about any sport ever is that you're a world champ for a day. Really. I was the best guy this weekend. I was the best guy that day. That's the best part about sports, is that there's always a time to try and take that guy out. Whether it's, you know, for WAF, it's once a year, but for East versus West, it's once an event. Like they seem to put on quite a bit of events. So, but that's the cool part about it. It's like, well, are you the world champion? Well, I was that day. Like that's better than most guys will ever do. So.
Right. Another thing, now we can shift gears. Where we see now with all the different organizations, you know, and I always thought it was a good thing because now there's a place for someone. It's not because everyone is not elite, which means everyone's not going to get their shot at being on KOTT, you know, East versus West. But there's these other organizations, you know, like Global Elite, like the MAC, AWC, King of the Table, Montana Armbender. The list goes on and on.
I just watched that event, the Montana Armbenders, and it was great. I didn't know anybody except the people in the super match at the end, obviously, Sanders and RVJ. I was like, this is so cool. It was really good production. There was music. There was like an MC. like all these guys in the Montana area are getting like watched by people around the country. I thought it was so awesome.
Well, here's the thing. What sets them apart from everybody else is that they do something different. It's not the same old thing. So if you saw the thing, it's like, are these guys being auctioned? Because it's like you get to the table and it's like going, hey, here's $100. Oh yeah, so and so is going to donate $500. This guy's going to do $50. It's like they're like, I'm pulling for how much? I'm like, wow, it's like an auction. No one's done that, and I hope no one starts to do that because that's what sets Montana Armbender away from everybody else. Do y'all agree with the different organizations that create different opportunities and platforms for a lot of other pullers? Do you agree or disagree?
No, I totally agree. I mean, like you said, not everybody's elite, and also not everybody's elite right away. So there's all these different leagues and stuff to get your name out there, to get footage of you, to get your experience up, like all that stuff. You know, who knows who the next big thing's going to be from the U.S. and where they're going to come from.
Yeah.
And like, it's all good, especially like right now where this, like, we're not at that point where we're like a UFC. Or, you know, we're not in that space right now where an athlete has to be sanctioned in order to compete, like that kind of thing. So it's like, you might as well just kind of start throwing stuff at the wall while you can, because it seems to me like the way that the sport's grown over the, you know, since COVID.
Yeah.
There's a big difference right now to me. Like, I started up the Hand Control YouTube channel again just to post training.
Right.
And the vast majority of my comments or questions are from people who don't even arm wrestle yet, which is such a complete different culture from when I stopped arm wrestling before.
Right.
The only people who'd ever talk to me were arm wrestlers.
Right.
We were all basically doing shows and talking to each other. Like, it was a very small circle. Now you're talking to everybody else. You're talking to the people on the couch who enjoy the sport, just like football, just like basketball. Which is a whole different culture too, because like,
I agree with that.
People who are at home who just like arm wrestling have an opinion that they think that so and so is not that good, and so and so is top 10 in the world. You know what I mean? It's great. Like, so I think in the next 5 years, it's a real potential that you could have a league that's sanctioned by some kind of governing body, and looking for sponsorship from places like Monster Energy and that kind of stuff. You don't know. Like, it could be there. So like right now, while you can, you might as well just do whatever you can to try and be unique.
Yeah.
I think East versus West has a good chance of getting that. I think imagining any kind of national organized thing in the United States, just everybody would fight over it, and it'll just get self-destructed because that's where we are right now. But
yeah, it's a rough place. Yeah.
But John's right. You know, our practice for Arsenal Arms, because we have a decent presence on social media, we almost every week we get 1 or 2 new people. So we have 30, 40 people at practice every day. Most of them flake out. But the fact that, you know, it used to be if a new person came to practice was like a big deal. Oh, we got a new guy coming tonight. Now it's like I have a stack of waivers in my basement because so many new people coming in that I don't know. Used to be like, hey, I got a buddy. Is it okay if I bring him? Now it's like just strangers reaching out on a regular basis, weekly, to come to practice. That's crazy. So I was like, I need waivers because I got 100 people that I don't know came in here last year. That's fucking nuts.
That's not a bad problem to have, Josh. You know that, right? That's not a bad problem to have.
But I mean, it supports John's point that the sport is really growing at an impressive rate. And so you asked the question and we sort of ignored it unintentionally, all of us, but about the bans. And it's like, that's, you know, not just talking about WAF and IFA. I'm talking about all the stupid stuff that's happening here with us banning each other for. I'll be honest with you, I never heard of the World Series of Arm Wrestling until yesterday.
Right.
I don't know what.
I don't even know what's happening.
So somebody banned the guy who runs World Series of Arm Wrestling, which again I never heard of. Banned everybody. Well, you guys are both going to be banned because if you go to Winter Blast, you're not allowed to go. Yeah.
Oh man!
If you go to Winter Blast, you're banned from World Series of Arm Wrestling. And I was like, because he's having a fight.
My whole world changed 7 seconds. In 7 seconds, I knew something and I was banned from it in 7 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been other, you know, similar things or whatever, and like the pay-per-view stuff. You know, athletes can only go to these ones and not other ones, and obviously the WAF FIFA stuff. I think in general the bans are all a bad idea. Obviously, I've said many times I disagree with the WAF bans. I understand it. Like the UFC doesn't allow people to compete in other MMA events, but the UFC is a multi-billion-dollar organization. None of these
contracted event. It was a contract.
Contracted, all that kind of stuff. So like people use rationales to explain it, but at the end of the day, bans are not good. I think that's
okay. The other word that came up the last couple of days that if I had $1 for contracts. Now that can be tricky, right? So first of all, everyone's contract is different from the other ones.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if I were to sign with WAL when it was hot, my contract would read a lot different than it would Michael Todd or Devin.
Yeah,
can we agree about that? Okay. So, and I've said this as an example, and I'll say it to you guys too. Let's just say, Knuckles Up, because that's in you guys' area, right? So let's just say William and Chris came to me and says, hey, Jody, we got an offer for you. We will offer you a 1-year contract from February 13th, 2025 to February 13th, 2026. In that year, we will guarantee you 3 matches, maybe a 4th. How would I go about that? I would sit there and go, let me think about that for a sec, read the contract. If it comes with the bells and whistles, you know what? I would do that because then at least I'm guaranteed 3 matches. Cool. I can train for that. Nothing but that if I was totally locked into that. Because reason why I said this on the show last night with Matt Conley up in Australia. I said I had friends who signed with Robert Drink in the UAL and got promised the world and nothing came of it. And I also have friends, teammates that signed with WAL, Steve Kaplan, got promised the world, nothing came of it. And I think that's when we all agreed contracts were stupid, and look at it now. I mean, what do y'all think about this contract lingo bingo?
I think contracts are voluntary and bans are not. If you're an adult and you sign up for a contract, that's your right. If you decide it makes sense for you, that's nobody else's business. Bans are not, unless you use PEDs and get caught, they're not something you opted into. It just happened to you.
Right.
And to me, there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what's the appeal of the contract too is that you like you said, it's a year contract in this scenario. You get X amount of matches. Well, you get to play in your entire year now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's super nice, especially when we all work full-time jobs and stuff. So it's a bit painful there. But yeah, I mean, the idea of contracts at this level does bug me. And East versus West, that kind of thing. I don't know what those guys are getting paid, but I have a feeling it's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're signing a contract for 3 guaranteed matches for $1,000 a piece, why do we need a contract? Just call me. You know what I mean? Like, are we really protecting the investment, which is my body, against the contract of $3,000 a year? You know what I mean? So I think at a certain level, I think the contracts are almost. I think you'd actually get more out of people if you didn't have the contract. You might even have more loyalty if you don't have the contract.
Right.
Just because of the way people work.
Right. And I only did that because it's like there are some people who are exclusive to a certain brand or a certain organization. Like, hey, this is me. I'm sticking with this, I mean, some people are like that, and, I always wondered because I have a souvenir contract sitting right here in this file from WL before the pandemic decided to, take its place. And, it would have been funny how that would have, went had COVID not happened, and, and I think by COVID happening, shutting everything down, people got bored, so they're watching YouTube. And then when we got the green light, everybody kind of just ran like gangbusters while we got this influx of, in my opinion, this influx of freaking pullers. But, contracts, it's just like, it all depends on what you want in the contract. Does it benefit you? I think some people just think, ooh, contract, because honestly, if someone offered me a contract, my brain goes to like, oh, they're interested in me. They care about me. Oh, wow, that's cool, because not everybody gets that kind of opportunity, So I took it as like, okay, if someone were to do that, let me read the the fine print, and then does it come with bells and whistles? Okay, if you're saying that, you better make good, because I'm gonna hold you to it, because I'm gonna sign this when the ink dries. There's an agreement there. That's why I always thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I think the difference with Knuckles Up and East versus West is, and King of the Table, is that they've all proven themselves to be worthy of trust,
Right.
Regardless of which one is your favorite, those guys are running professional cards. They're treating their athletes very well. So, being offered a contract from one of them, I think is substantively different from Wall, whereas Wall never told you how many events there were going to be or how often they were going to happen or within what period of time your contract was going to be. Like when East versus West first started, I remember, because obviously I was doing a lot of work with it then.
You were on the first card, weren't you?
I was on the first card.
Yeah, see, I remember
I was the last match, so technically I was the headliner. Even though
there you go.
I mean,
the first one went in reverse order because it was Matt Mask and Hermes were the first match, and then we went in opposite order. Just to be clear, even though I was the last match, I was definitely not the headliner. But no, we had to fucking write to Wall and ask permission for Matt Mask and a couple other athletes to be there because they were still technically under Wall contract because the contracts were for a number of matches or events, not for a specific number of years. So even though Wall had been inactive for an extended period of time at that point, we still had to get permission from them. And they put us through a bunch of crap, to be honest with you. Like I had to personally sign things saying I was going to be responsible for certain types of promotion not happening and that certain names weren't going to be there. Like Igor Mazarenko, for some reason, they were super pissed off about it or whatever. And it was just ridiculous. And I at that point, I was like, these contracts are not beneficial to the athletes. So, I think nowadays, in my opinion, people like Engen and Knuckles Up have demonstrated that they are serious about this. They're treating people well. They're trying to take it, to another level for all of us. And that those are people I would trust. So I think we're in a little bit of a different situation now because of that.
Right. Well, here's a comment from Mr. Peanut. What good were the Wall contracts when everyone was standing in Las Vegas paying for their travel, hotels, room expenses to find the event canceled? $235,000 was being paid out. I remember that moment.
Excellent point. Excellent. He's 100% right.
I remember that.
Was that 2017?
It's 17 or 18. I can't remember what year. It was one of those years.
Dude, I need to be reminded what year it is now. So I don't know what year it was. I remember how pissed off everybody was. And we were involved, John, in trying to resurrect that event. If you remember, we're trying to find a way to find someone to host it. Remember, actually, Robert Drink came back out of whatever hovel he had been hiding in and offered to give some money. Remember that? And I don't. It didn't end up happening. But
we did a show where
it's coming back to you now. So your memory's starting to fade too. So I don't feel as bad. But, it's just. But again, the community showed that it cared and was trying to come together to make something happen, similar to what happened when Arnold's got canceled at the year of the pandemic. People tried to resurrect it to some extent.
They went to a bar. It was called Stephen named it something like. He went to a bar. Toddzilla went to a bar. They all kind of went there. He called it he named it something. It was kind of funny, but it made sense. I can't remember what the name was, but any event, I remember that. I was supposed to go, and I was like, well, if they're gonna shut Arnold down, I'm not hopping on no plane. So there you go. But I do say this. My fear with the East versus West is that it will sometimes morph into what Wall did, because after a while you start seeing the same matches over and over. It's like, okay, you don't want to get too many of those recycled matches because then it's like, okay, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? That's my.
I think that there's probably some truth to that, but if you look at any combat sport, for any 10-year period, you're going to have the biggest matches are going to be between 5 or 6 super heavyweights, right? Because those are the people that are the best in that moment. In 10 years, like it or not, the people who are on top now are not going to be competing at this level. They're just not going to be. Mm-hmm. The amount of drugs people are taking, their bodies are not going to hold up to it. We've seen it happen over and over again with other huge athletes in the past. And, people are going to, people that we don't even know the names of are going to become superstars over the next few years. And I think that there will be transitions that happen naturally. Outside of super heavyweights, honestly, there's been quite a lot of variety in the East versus West cards. We just all tend to, and I'm the same way. We all focus on the biggest guys because those, in our minds, those are the best on the planet.
Right.
And yeah, sometimes you do get sick of saying the same 3 or 4 people, but it is what it is. They're the best. So we have to figure out, again, if any of them can beat Levon at Levon's current stage. And,
I'm still waiting on this version of Vitaly against Levon. This version, not the one before in the top 8, but I'm waiting for this one now because I'm thinking this one may create some issue because from what I've seen from Levon, ever since we went to the East versus West King of Table format, anytime you apply some kind of back pressure, you can stall him for a second, right? You go Levon Devin part 2, match 1 in the strap. Devin put his whole entire world in the back pressure. Levon, like, oh crap, now what? But problem was Devin was kind of stuck there. So with Hermes, right? How did Hermes get to that press? Well, he had to go back pressure first. Then when he went like this, Levon wasn't. He looked human for a second. So I'm curious, hoping Michael Todd wins this weekend because we all know the winner of that, him and Hermes, has a date with Mr. Levon down the road. But if Michael wins, he has that weird, orthodox style. Mm-hmm. But given Vitaly, that guy with that, he 6'8", something like that, got the long lever, and if he decides to go slide the elbow forward and lean way back, is that going to be enough to cause and create issues for Levon? We don't know because that version of Vitaly wasn't around during top 8. Agree or disagree?
Let me think about this. I think 3 things, and I'll try to be quick because I know John probably wants to say shit. But he knows. He always lets me go first. He's very because I talk too much. He has he's the genius, whatever. He says the smart things. I'm the one who just vomits information out. So it's like that version of Vitaly obviously was not as good as the version that we see now, but the version of Levon back then was not the same. The hardest we've seen him work was against Hermes, who had 3 things working in his favor. One, that was the biggest Levon has ever been, and a lot of that weight was not functional. Mm-hmm. So a lot of blood flow was going to his stomach when it should have been going to his arms. 2, he had just gotten over COVID or whatever flu shit he had, so his respiration was crappy. And 3, nobody on the entire planet knew Hermes was going to do that. This was a complete surprise that he had not trained for. That came out of nowhere, right? All those things together caused Levon to be really, put in as close to we've ever seen him to losing in the super match format. But Levon he's lighter now. He's stronger. He's certainly smarter. And if you watch Levon at WAF, he's a very intelligent puller. He's not the kind of standard super heavyweight who has one move that he doesn't even do that well, but he's just so strong. He just smashes people. He's got a whole arsenal of techniques that he's used to win at WAF. So I think as long as he stays healthy, I don't see a typical athlete beating him. Somebody like Michael Todd, who has that sticking the bone lock thing, right. Somebody like that maybe could give him a hard time. And I could be wrong, but I don't see Vitaly doing it.
Go ahead, run with it, John.
Yeah, I'm curious about, Vitaly at his size currently, for sure. Because the guy is just so huge. And you look at Vitaly and you're like, that's a big dude. But you could even see when you look at other super heavyweights, it makes Vitaly look like he actually has more size to put on, which is kind of insane because he's already an absolute giant. I agree with what Josh was saying for sure. I don't think anybody expected Hermes to give Levon trouble and a flop wrist. That's just not what Gasparini's known for. But right. To kind of pile on to Josh's point too about Levon being a great arm wrestler, not just a super strong arm wrestler, you can kind of see that Levon has worked on some of his weaknesses over the years. He has had a really tough time with people once they turn him in. If he gets turned into a hook, he's had trouble in the past. Krasi. He beat him.
Krasi beat him.
You know what I mean? And from what I've seen, whenever I see Levon training on the table. I see him grabbing people low and hooking them. And it just tells me that he has an understanding of what he needs to do in order to continue to be on top. That's really, really important. Levon's a very smart dude.
Yeah, he is
very smart.
He's smart, he's humble, he's kind, and he studies people. I mean, we watched what happened with Jerry. Obviously, I was there and wanting. I wasn't there. I was with Jerry with Alex, but not with Levon. But he took Jerry very seriously. He studied all his matches and trained specifically to beat Jerry's move, which he did brilliantly, grabbing low, and completely decimated him, which was amazing to me because obviously Jerry looked unbelievable against Alex. And even though I think most people were like, we really want Jerry to win because we're from the United States, we knew it was going to be a tough ask. I just didn't think it was going to go the way it did. And so I think that speaks to John's point too, that he's a very intelligent arm wrestler. He takes people seriously, and whoever he gets next, he's going to train specifically for that. And the reason I think Vitaly is, and you're right, like Angarbayev gave Levon a little bit of pause too by doing his maximum back pressure thing.
Yeah.
But I think he sometimes lets people hit to that point and then he adjusts, gets comfortable. And the next match, kind
of like tennis does.
Yeah, match 2, match 3, it's completely different. He feels them out a little bit, and then he adjusts. So if you're not able to get through him immediately with a top roll, I don't think you're going to in a longer match. I think that's where his best endurance is. So that's why I don't think he's going to get beat in a top roll, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I think usually Levon's worst match is his first match.
Yeah.
Right.
Even like when Bresden pulled Levon years ago.
Yeah.
And we prepared him as best we could for it, obviously, but Levon's special. And that very first match, Levon, not that he had a hard time with Timmy in that first round, but you could tell that he felt Timmy in that first round.
Yeah.
Right.
And then after those rounds, he just got more and more comfortable. And it's like, I don't think that that's a physicality thing. I think that comfort that Levon continues to feel is that he's just basically downloading information from your style, and he's basically able to perfect it.
That's what made John so great.
He said that he uses that first hit as a warm up, so that sometimes, and that could be just him gassing us up because he doesn't want to admit that he's having a hard time doing the first match. But he says absorbing that hit like he did with Devin is kind of like John said, data downloading, and also it's warming his hand up for the rest of the matches. And if that's true, it's even crazier if you can imagine that he's willing to do that against these absolute top level athletes, that he feels comfortable letting them do whatever they want in the first match. It's nuts. But he's scary. I mean, he's probably, I've seen a lot of people say this, he probably is the best super heavyweight that we've ever seen.
Yes.
Yeah, he is.
We could say, what if, if Dennis was healthy, we could say, what if, there's one. Another what if, had Andre Pushkar not gotten that car wreck, we could say, what if with that one,
I would have loved to seen Pushkar versus Levon,
Pushkar was on his way to something really special.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Because remember, and let me jog y'all's memory, I think Pushkar was the number one guy. And
he was number one, left and right.
Right. And all of a sudden that tragic car accident happened. All of a sudden, well, Levon, I guess it's you now,
As a matter of fact, he was on the way because he had just beaten Siplenkov a few months earlier. I think it was at A1. And people were like, uh-oh. And then at this event, he was going to have to go through Siplenkov left and right. And everybody was like, well, I guess we'll find out now if he really can beat him. And then he died on the way there. So it was crazy.
And he was only I want to say 33 or something.
He was 27, dude. He wasn't even 30 years old yet. He looked older because, with the drugs.
Well, he's been in the sport forever, too. There's classic videos. It's 2005, him giving Brzezinski a match at Zloty. And it's this kid's 17.
I know.
Special guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go see those battles. And honestly, I like those old battles between. A lot of people here in the States don't remember that was a big rivalry between those guys. Pushkar and Siplenkov. They went head to head.
So many times.
Numerous times.
So many times. It was great. I loved it every single time, too. Yeah, Ryan Grondin in this text I don't know if Ryan Grondin, is he banned from the show?
Oh, no. No one's banned from my show.
Make sure. because I think Ryan's banned from everywhere.
Easy, Ryan. Easy, dude. Tread lightly around this. All right.
He says right here, I'm banned from every org, even 98. So he's
banned from he banned himself. Ryan, that's a mistake.
I never met Ryan in person. I've talked to Ryan a bunch of times online, and usually it's about because there's some kind of conflict going on with some person or other. So the one thing you say about Ryan, he definitely is in the middle of a lot of stuff. And Winter Blast is such a great event. I mean, a bunch of people from my team have gone down there. I haven't gone down yet, but it's coming right up. So I'm sure it's going to be another huge event. It's really cool. You guys are both going to be there.
You know, like I said before, you don't get too many tournaments out here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's kind of like, you know, I was always jealous because the Northeast, there's tons of events. You know, there's, you know, what's that one you guys have in the fall? Is it New England's?
New England's, yeah.
You got that. Winter Blast, of course, you know. You guys used to have the Big Apple Grapple, something like that. The South, I mean, it's just, you know, a cluster of tournaments. The Midwest, even the Missouri, Kansas area, and, of course, California speaks for itself in Texas. But when it comes to, like, the Northwest, we have to travel. We don't even have a state championship. Can you imagine that? Oregon does not have one.
I can imagine it.
So a lot of my state titles are outside of Oregon, which is sad.
You should start one. You should start a state title. It's not that hard. You can do it. You've done tournaments in the past.
There's been talk of bringing one back. We brought it back once, and that kind of just after that it was kind of no more. So, but
you gotta stick with. That's how New England's came back. I don't know. It's been like 12 years at this point, but it disappeared for a long time. Like New England's was the best tournament I won when I was first in the sport in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was like, what happened to New England's? And it just faded out. So we brought it back. And the first couple of years, it was small, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger every year. So like 360 entries last year, I think. So it's not quite as big as Winter Blast. But I think if you're getting over 300 entries, you get a sizable tournament. And the more of those that we have, the better it is for the sport. And there should be like regional large events like that. And it would be cool if one day they qualified people to go to a singular nationals, but obviously that's a pipe dream as it is right now.
Well,
John ducks everybody practice. If you ever practice with John, you know, if he waits, everybody gets tired, sits around the back of the room, and he's the one.
I show up at like an hour and a half late, and I'm like, guys, I got held up. I'm sorry. There's a lot of traffic.
You know. Actually, the opposite is true. If you ever practice with John, he stays on the table the entire time, and you have to like get him out with a crowbar. And then it's like, John, it's nighttime, go home. It's like, wait, just one more match.
Yeah, I have an idea.
If there were the last question before we put a bow tie on this, if there was one tournament that you like to see come back, what tournament would that be?
Other than Unified Nationals?
Yes.
Can-Ams. I think Can-Ams would be
great. You stole mine, dude. You stole mine.
Tell me why. Explain to people in the chat what that was.
Can-Ams was like a dual nationals back in the day. So it was a tournament that Bill Cox used to run, and he would run it like someplace in the north of the United States or in the southern part of Canada, and they would routinely get 600-700 entries. And like both Canada and the United States took it really seriously, and there would be really strong teams there, and it was an amazing event.
Same thing, John.
Yeah, I would have said that, but I'll go down to my number 2, the Harley Pull.
Yeah,
okay, Mike Bowling used to put it on in Toledo, Ohio. And
is that the one you win your class, you get the key to the motorcycle? Yeah. But only one key worked.
Yep. It was super cheap to get there, and the place that they held it at, the hotel, the event was in the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
And all the rooms were all around the lobby. So you stay there and you just walk out and you're at the tournament. And blast music all day, and it was just awesome matches. And then the finale is, all the finalists sit there with their key and try to start the bike. And it's just the best. And I love that tournament.
Yeah.
So I got a question. You said the Can-Ams, Josh. And I've seen old footage of Gary Roberts has some footage. Scott McGinnis and Canada have footage, and it was somewhere in the Northeast, and it was always in this bar area scene, and then you had USA guys there, and then you had the Canadian guys there. I don't know if that was the same thing you're talking about, but there was one event, and USA had Bresden, RBJ, Brezink, Tom Nelson, Devin brought his crew down there, John Milne,
Chris
Gobby, those guys. I'm thinking, Was that it? I don't know what
you
the name.
Think of the Michael Gould Classic because that got a lot of those people too, and that was usually in a bar. Can-Am was typically in like an event hall in like a hotel or something like that.
Gotcha.
But the Michael Gould Classic was another one that was always held in Canada that had tons of people from the U.S. go up there, and that was also there was a tournament and a super match format version of it.
Now, was that an invite, or could you just show up?
But yeah, you could show up to the tournament. The super matches were obviously invite.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and back in the day, Chris Ganji, rest in peace, used to run the Fall Classic and the Connecticut States. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes Canada guys would come down. Like Denny DeBrail used to come down. I think there was like a classic video that Gary Roberts posted years ago, Mike Solaris pulling like 8 classes. And that was I believe that was either at Connecticut States or the Fall Classic. But I mean, Ganji used to put on these tournaments in Connecticut, and we would get like 16 dudes, 18 dudes in the 176. And like 10 of us thought we could win the class.
Yeah.
And there was like $250.
Yeah.
Like in every class was like that. You know, a state tournament that was just insane like that. And then Pete Milano and James Rederitas used to put on events. They were like the ones who started like super matches in the US like predominantly. They were the ones who featured Travis and Jerry Cataret, of course, but they also did host
$15,000 super match.
Yeah, and they also hosted years later Devin versus Dave Randall.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah, because I think like Karen Bean was like the ref or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that was it.
I remember. I was just gonna, say, oh well, hey, thanks for joining us, but then John goes, oh yeah, 17 guys in that class, and then $250. I'm like, okay. So when I first got into the sport, back when it was the Northeast Message Board, and Gary Roberts was the only person doing stuff like that with the videos, the sports evolved, and now it was like, then it was more like, okay, what's first place? $300? Who's gonna be there? It was more about who was there, not so much about, well, I would go, but it has to, pay for my flight. And I understand some people have earned that and deserve that. Don't get me wrong. But a lot, whatever happened to like, hey, are you going? All right, I'll be. If you're going, I'm going. Whatever happened to that?
Well, it's a lot of what we talked about earlier, Jody. I think, for whatever reason, there are a lot of people who are nervous about finding out where they really are at. And some of the bigger tournaments with bigger names, you end up having a lot of people that should be there not show up. And I don't know why that is. And I don't know if it's because we have all bought into our own mythologies a little bit, and it's really easy to be amazing on Instagram or whatever and not actually get tested. But it's definitely true. Sometimes there are big events and people that are within 20 minutes don't show up. And you're like, why would you not want to be here and face these 5 dudes that came down from Canada or drove up from New York or whatever? And but I do see it happen a lot these days. And it probably happened in the past too. And I just don't remember it. But it seemed like in the past it was more of like a battle-oriented mentality about stuff. And people just wanted to throw themselves into the middle and see what happened.
Right.
Which again is why I respect people that go over to WAF so much, like Paul Talbot and Jeff Hale and other people who've gone from the States because they're going into the fire.
Right.
Yeah, because I can tell you, like, I think it was 2014, maybe 2013, USAA Nationals was in Hartford, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched some of the best pulling you'll ever see in your life versus Jerry Cataret and Tim Bresnan.
Yeah. I was there.
Wasn't a dime. Nobody got a dime from it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you competitively, Tim is not going to back down, and Jerry's definitely not going to back down. You know what I mean? Like you could put anything between them. They're gonna fight it out and find out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just whatever happened to that competition? Because for me, it's more like, all right, I want to know where I stand. Case in point, I went to Arm Wars. I want to know where I stand on an international level because I thought I was doing something here. Man, I went to go see Neil and those guys in Manchester, England, and those international pullers. That's a whole different world, man. Like when you're on the table and, you got the UK guys, you got guys from, Australia, Scotland, Romania. You guys know because you guys are pulled international, but to witness that and to feed off that, it's like, man, I don't know a damn thing about this sport. When I'm sitting up here, I'm waking up Sunday morning. I had a banger of a day the night before, and I'm sitting drinking coffee, and I'm talking with Maynard Ninjas, and then we go on the table to mess around and stuff. I learned more from that guy in 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I learned in the 2 years prior to me going there,
dude.
just by talking to him.
I know it's
the terminology he uses. Here, this is how this is. I said, well, my team, we have X amount of people. He says, well, my club has X. I'm not going. Just by him saying team to club, already like that done raised the bar already. This dude sat there and told me, oh, yeah, we got about 6 or 7 tables, and then half of them will spend the first maybe hour or so, half hour, give or take, on the table. The other half on the weights and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, they rotate. Blew me away. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm thinking I'm doing something here. I'll listen to this dude. I'm like going, damn, it's just to me, it's mind boggling. You know what I mean?
And there's levels above that. Like in Shadhara, they got like a place that's the size of Planet Fitness that is only for arm wrestling with all professional coaches in there. And they got hundreds of people training there on a daily basis, so there's like levels above even where Neil is. And so that's the part about the sport that I think we lose sight of, like the potential here for what we could do in a country that's way bigger than any of these other countries we're talking about is astronomical. And I think to what started your point, I mean, if you look at Larry Wheels, right? Mm-hmm. He had millions of followers before he even thought about arm wrestling. And because he was losing to people that look like us, just like I've lost a 16-year-old fucking 120-pound Kazakhstani kid on the afterpulling at WAF. I'm like, holy crap, this kid looks like he weighs nothing, and he's like as strong as an ox. So Larry Wheels has got millions and millions of followers, and he starts losing them because he's losing to people that look like us arm wrestling. He's like, I can't arm wrestle anymore because it hurts his income stream, right? So if you're like making money off of the sport, you can't be losing because then you're going to lose money every time. You're going to lose followers every time. So there's more at risk now. You can't maybe make money from actually arm wrestling, but you can make money. I mean, the arm wrestling whisper, I never even heard of this guy. I can't tell you how many people sent me videos of him pulling some random people in a gym. Oh, look at this guy. He's the best arm wrestler ever. I never heard of the fucking guy. I know he finally entered some tournaments and stuff, but it's like there's so much notoriety to be made by not losing that you can understand why people don't want to show up at big events.
Oh, now I remember. My opinion, though, it's because when you want to get on some of these big cards, you start taking losses, then it's like, okay, that might shoot down my momentum. And I'm just guessing. I'm not saying that's just my opinion. Because I've seen people in the past where they take a couple losses, all of a sudden they're not getting those calls anymore. It's unfortunate, but it's like going, okay, now what?
Image.
You know what I mean?
It's image. Yeah, it's just like an image thing. And it's like when the truth of the matter is like, man, how many losses do arm wrestlers take throughout their career? A ton. Mm-hmm. John Brzezinski never won a whole year without losing. Mm-hmm. He's the greatest of all time, and everybody believes him to be it's universal. He's the greatest of all time. He's the Michael Jordan of the sport. Yeah, and he never went undefeated.
Yeah,
I mean, there were times where I heard there were times where Gary Goodwin went through everybody one calendar year and never took a loss. You know what I mean? Those things happen. I mean, look at LeVon. Maybe not as active as those guys were back then in their prime, but ain't took a loss. Let me retract that statement. Hasn't taken a pin because he did lose those two, but they were kind of, But I hope haven't taken a pin in I don't know how long,
Yeah, and the fact is too, like with some of these athletes who are we're talking about reaching the peak of their humanly abilities. Mm-hmm. If they compete too often, they're going to end up injured. Mm-hmm. Like after a certain, I can guarantee you LeVon takes quite a bit of time off after a big match of that huge prep. The prep I'm guaranteed is very difficult on his body. The match is hard enough. I bet you he takes a big, long time off to let everything heal and let everything kind of calm down before even starting training again.
Yeah.
Because you're putting a lot of nitrous through a system. You know what I mean? And like things don't hold together if you push that too far.
It's no different than boxing. Oh, I'm going to fight you in February. Well, you might not have another match until I don't know, September, because you got to, the heal and then the train and then, prepping, I see why. I think other people, and I'm starting to see that now since you brought that up, because I'm thinking if we have a new champion, is that champion going to be active or more active?
I mean, well, look at, was it Shamusha? East versus West 85 kilos. Like, what's the 10-time? He's defended his belt like every single event.
He's a madman.
It's incredible, and in my opinion, he's the most active guy out there at that level.
I mean, Devin's up there.
He is. Oh, no doubt.
Devin is pulling like crazy all the time. It impresses me.
Yeah, every class too. And now he's literally 40
Dude, I
kilos
almost fell out of my chair
time.
when I saw a picture that I saw on Reddit, and it looked like he was pregnant. I was like, "What is going on here?"
He's going all in. He's going all in. Okay, last question. I promise. Bonus question. Somebody asked me, and I'm gonna give you my opinion. I want you guys' opinion. GOAT, greatest of all time. I say, and I'm gonna tell you why. I say Brzezinski 1A, Devin 1B. Here's why. I think John did it through the tournament path, and Devin did it through the super match path. That's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's just how I see it. Because they're like right there, but one of them did it through tournament style, the other one doing super match style. That's just me. What do y'all think?
Well, I think it's 100% Brzezinski, and I think the reason the separation, as long as Devin has been around, John's been around like 20 years longer than that. Mm-hmm. There's never been a period of dominance in any sport that I'm aware of like Brzezinski's dominance in our sport. And to me, that sets him apart. I think you can make an argument about one person being better in a specific class, like Levon, super heavyweights. You can make an argument about Devin being better at super matches than Brzezinski. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I don't even know if that's accurate. But in terms of overall, I think it's a really difficult argument to make that it's anybody but Brzezinski. And I think that we are all subjected to like recency bias, like people saying LeBron's the greatest of all time, or like they were saying Kobe was when he was playing. And in my mind, it's, and you get the two people you can bring up are Michael Jordan and Bill Russell, and I pick Michael Jordan. And it's just because, 10, 15 years go by when someone is no longer competing actively, then you can look back and say you really know whether this person was the best. And for me, that's what elevates Brzezinski above everybody else. But I think Devin is without a doubt top 5 all time, and he could easily be number 2.
Right. What do you think there, Mr. Brown?
So I do think there's a separation. So I will say from the sports perspective of like the competition and the longevity and all that, it's Brzezinski for sure. Mm-hmm. And like one major point for me that I don't see brought up very often is Brzezinski almost changed the way the sport is done when he was in his younger years, where there was so much pushing with arm wrestling. It was very much side pressure, a lot of tricep pressing, very center of the table kind of arm wrestling. And he started using his back. He started to pull. It completely changed the trajectory of the sport. With even in a hook, he was pulling now. It wasn't a push anymore. And of course, he can press and all that stuff, and that makes him great too. Is that he could do literally anything you ask him to do. He can do it at the highest level. But the guy changed the way the sport was done as a smaller human being at any weight class, anytime on the planet for decades. I mean, it's hard to beat that. It's really, really difficult to beat that. But if we talk about elevation of the sport, bringing the sport to the rest of the world, it's no doubt Devin. Devin has done an incredible job of taking our sport and sharing it with the world. And he's put his stamp on it too. Mm-hmm. Because you see a lot of new guys come through and they're pulling like this. For better or worse, they're doing what Devin does. And how loved Devin is in the grand scheme of people who are following the sport of arm wrestling, is that Michael Todd was basically burned at the stake for doing that. Devin starts doing it, and everybody loves it.
Why is it that he gets so much hate, but the people before and after him don't? Crazy George.
They all get the hate. They get the hate. George got tons of hate. There just wasn't
George did.
Social media then. He got plenty of hate. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, guys, this has been awesome. I'm glad we can do this like we, back in the day. So, hey, maybe we can do this again soon. What do you guys think?
Anytime you want, man. It's fun talking with you. And, every once in a while, John and I joke around about season 3 of Game Control Worldwide or whatever. And we always have fun when we do it. It's just like, we have lives and kids in our lives.
It should be clear. Every time it's brought up, I'm the one who doesn't know. Yeah. Josh is being very nice. I'm the problem. Josh is not.
I think that I would do them once in a while for sure. But what we used to do was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Because we would be on.
I'll be honest. I like being a guest way more than I like hosting a show.
Yeah.
It's just kick back and you just answer questions,
I want to talk about arm wrestling for an hour and a half.
I explained to you how he kicked back before. I was doing all the work. So, he always needs to just chill out, and that's so.
Yeah, anyway. Josh was like, "So, what's your 5-year plan?" And I'm like,
No, it's good because we got 15 people watching. I think we had more than that at one point, but it's good because to have some people in the chat go, "Hey, there's a reason why I brought you two on here. You want to talk about encyclopedia? There you go. I mean, these guys have been around." We're talking these two guys on my show had legends in their camp. John had Tim Breslin, legend in his camp. Josh would train with Jerry Carteret in his camp, and throw in RBJ too from time to time. But Frank Hurst, list goes on and on. Same thing with Breslin and Klemba, in Connecticut with Team Dungeon. But sometimes it's always good to kind of open Pandora's box and kind of go back in time and go, hey. These guys know what they're talking about. These guys have been to tournaments where, oh, you went to that event? Yeah, I was there, and this is how it happened. And, it's always good to have a healthy conversation, and I'm glad. And you know what? I want to do it again down the road. What do you think?
Maybe on your next birthday. We didn't say happy birthday to you.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jody. What are you, like 32?
I wish. Good old 49, so.
Wow, you're still young, man. Give me a break.
Here's funny. So, did you realize that Winter Blast, their Grandmaster starts at 49? Did you know that?
I saw that. I was annoyed by that, Ryan, because I like it to be as small as possible. It should start at 53 and end at 54. That's how I would do it.
I'm trying to. Well, here's my goal. Whether it happens or not, we'll see how because I'm basically now a one-arm puller, right? With arthritis and bone spurs. This one I'm pretty much done, but. My goal is to pull a super match Friday night, pull open, pull masters and grandmasters. I'll see how my arm holds up. Because if I'm able to get a dragon, because that's the thing over there where Michigan State's got the gorilla statues and, the Winter Blast has the dragons. I want to get one so bad. I want to earn one.
Ottawa, if you like those, Ottawa has bisons that are in exactly the same size, gigantic ones. I think it's the same company that makes all of them.
Yes.
When is that tournament, Josh?
The Ottawa one?
Yeah. Is that November?
Yeah, it's already up there. If you can look up I'm going to show you. Hold on a second. I want to show you the trophy.
Oh yeah, this guy. Check this out.
I'm the absolute worst with keeping up with arm wrestling stuff. So people bring up stuff and I'm like, I don't know what anybody's talking about. I go through Facebook and it's cats. That's all I see. That's all I look at.
Oh, you serious?
They're heavy.
How much some things weigh?
Probably like 15 pounds. I don't know. They're heavy.
Wow, that's crazy.
Damn.
And they're awesome. And yeah, I mean it's already up on. Eric puts it up like instantly as soon as the 2024 event is off. He puts up the new one. I'll look it up before we hang up right here. And nice. I definitely recommend if you can make it up there that you go because it's a blast of a tournament.
I actually have one of my little 2017 New England Coins, yeah.
That's cool.
November 15th, 2025.
See, that's the thing. It's stuff like that. Like, who does coins like that? Nobody does. So, I mean, I understand a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people like the money. I get it. I get it. But when you have a dragon, a bison, a coin, a gorilla statue, whatever, one of those gators they got down in Florida, when you have that kind of stuff, it's like, that's just badass,
Like the tournaments that we run, I'm making an effort to break even. So I always get really heavy and cool looking prizes, and we give away a lot of cash prizes. And the reason I do that is because I don't want arm wrestling to be like a money-making thing for me. I also want people in the coins, for example, you would get a coin just for entering. So like no matter how bad of an arm wrestler you were, you get a little memorabilia from the event to take home. And t-shirts are great too, but I mean, I like being able to give somebody like something substantial that has a little weight to it when they come to a tournament. And if you notice, all of the bigger events, Winter Blast, Ottawa Open, Michigan States, they have significant trophies that you can win if you do well. And that attracts more people than money.
Well, because they tell a story. For me, I mean, these trophies behind me on this mantle and all the medals I got here in this closet over here, for me, they tell a story. Like, oh, yeah, I remember I went there. I still got my, as quiet as kept. When I went to the Arnold in 2019, I still got my hotel key card as a souvenir. Probably shouldn't have done that, but still, I forgot about it, and now it's a souvenir. So,
Nice.
But, gentlemen, it's been nice. Wifey's at home now. I'm about to go ahead and get some gifts. But, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure as always. And like I said, if it wasn't for you two, this podcast show of ArmTalk would not exist. So, once again, thank you for that.
That's right. You all owe us. Never forget it.
Exactly. John, I will see you next month.
Yep. We'll see you, buddy.
Josh, I will see you down the road. I know you're going to say, come to Nationals. I know you always say that. So
I'm not going to give up because I want to see you at WAF.
Hey, never say never. Never say never.
Fair enough.
Gentlemen, it's been nice. We'll talk to you down the road.
See you
later.
Take care.